The Naginata was a Japanese polearm used by the samurai. It was also used by ashigaru and fighting monks. In lesser numbers, it was used by women in times of need. The men would be armed with the O Naginata, a larger version of the Ko Naginata, the Naginata used by women. The main difference was a shorter blade to compensate for the woman's likely lack of height and upper body strength compared to a man's. The Naginata consists of a large pole, usually wooden but occasionally it was made of metal. In the end of the pole would be a large and curved blade, similar to the European glaive. The shape of the Naginata blade could vary. Some of them were more similar to the blade of a tachi or katana, whereas some were far thicker, giving it a stronger cut. The blades would often begin with a Japanese handguard known as a tsuba, a small ring guard also found on tachis and katanas. The blade would be made in the same fashion as all Japanese blades, ending in a length of between 30 and 60 centimeters. The blade is attached to the pole in the same fashion as a sword blade would be attached to the hilt, with a long tang inserted into a pole and is then secured with wooden pegs. The pole would range from lengths of 120 and 240 centimeters. The cross-section of the pole is an oval, allowing for the blade to have strong alignment, allowing for a powerful cut. Whether the blade's tang is pegged, there are reinforcing metal rings or a full metal sleeve, both of which would be covered in cord to make it look nicer. The first archaeological finds of a Naginata dates back to the Nakamura period, around the 12th century. It is possible that the Naginata existed before then, going back to the Nara period of the 700s of the 8th century, where written records predating the first archaeological finds, but most of them are unclear. The earliest clear records of the Naginata date back to the late Heian period, with writings speaking of a newly developed weapon in 1146, a few decades earlier than the first archaeological finds. From the 10th to 12th century, there are writings talking about longswords, possibly referring to the Naginata, as the term longsword and its connotations today are based on European naming conventions, not Japanese. There are also drawings of soldiers from the Heian periods, armed with Naginatas, though these were all drawn centuries after the events and are likely just using the Naginata as a way to distinguish the Sohei from other soldiers. The first documented uses of the Naginata are during the Genpei War, a civil war between the Taira clan and the Minamoto clan. During the war, the Naginata rose to a position of prominence, being regarded as a weapon used by great soldiers. It was around this time that cavalry had become more prominent, and the Naginata was a great weapon for dismounting cavalry soldiers due to its massive reach, owing to its extremely long pole handle. The Naginata became so used that new armor was adopted to try and counter its effectivity. The Naginata remained prominent all the way up to the introduction of firearms in 1543. During the Edo period from 1600 to 1868, the weapon became known as a weapon used by women of nobility for self-defense, as wars were greatly decreased, diminishing the requirements of battlefield weapons. In the Meiji era, that lasted from 1868 to 1912, the Naginata gained popularity as a martial arts weapon, along with swords. During the Taisho era, lasting until 1926, the weapon was once more seen as a woman's weapon. During this time, the view that spears were a woman's weapon also became widespread. The Naginata was a great polearm that was extremely effective. The weapon lasted for hundreds of years, never truly losing favour. It managed to survive the adoption of guns and even led into the modern era. It was regarded as a weapon for great soldiers and it was extremely popular. Even today, with an estimated 200 Naginata practitioners in the United States alone.